start with the prayer. কান্ধারি তুমি পার করো দুঃখ যন্ত্রণা সাগর ত্যাগ করো না রক্ষা করো হে পরমেশ্বর সংসারেতে আছে যত দুঃখ যন্ত্রণা গ্লানি পার হব দূরে তব চরণ ধরণী একে এক সব হলো ব্যক্ত রইল বাকি চরমতম সত্য অন্তর মম বিকশিত করো অন্তরতর হে হে প্রভু তুমি মেথাও যাও কিছু মোদের প্রয়োজন খাদ্য বস্ত্র আয়োজন তুমি করো রক্ষা মোদের হে পরমেশ্বর মহিমা তোমার সাগর যেমন মায়া দেও বাতাসে তুমি মায়া তব মহিমা আমি ঢুবে ঢুবে যাকে আসে সব সৃষ্টির স্রষ্টা তুমি সব সৃষ্টির উপাদান তুমি সৃষ্টি তোমাতে যেন নিবেদিত হয় মন প্রাণ তুমি মায়া স্রষ্টা মায়ার সুখী হও মায়ার সৃষ্টিতে তুমি দূর করো মায়াভিভ্রম সায়ুজ্য অনুদৃষ্টি জ্ঞান সত্য আনন্দ তুমি ভূত ভবিষ্যৎ বর্তমান আদি শব্দে স্থিত তুমি কখনো হাওনি বিচ্ছিন্ন আমার ভিতরে বাইরে অন্তরে 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 পূর্ণ মহিমা তোমার সর্বদা করি প্রার্থনা প্রভু জয় হোক জয় জয়কার হে মহাদেব তোমার জয় হোক চিদানন্দ দুর্বলের রক্ষক তোমার জয় হোক প্রেমানন্দ তোমার মহিমা দীপ্ত গভীর সাগরে ডুবে যেন যেতে পারি চিরকাল যেন সুখ
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vishna. That was really, really beautiful. We now have Advaita Manoj, who's going to be singing Devadashakam for us in Malayalam. Over to Advaita.
ഓം ദൈവമേ കാത്തുകൊള്ളുകങ്ങ് കൈവിടാതിങ്ങു ഞങ്ങളെ നാവികൻ നീ ഭവാബ്ദിക്ക് ഉരാവിവൻ തോണി നിൻ പദം ഒന്നൊന്നായി എണ്ണി എണ്ണി തൊട്ടെണ്ണും പൊരുളുടുങ്ങിയാൽ നിന്നിടും ദൃക്കുപോലുള്ളം നിന്നില സ്പന്ദമാകണം അന്നവസ്ത്രാദിമുട്ടാതെ തന്നു രക്ഷിച്ചു ഞങ്ങളെ ധന്യരാക്കുന്ന നീയൊന്നു തന്നെ ഞങ്ങൾക്കു തമ്പുരാൻ ആഴിയും തിരയും കാറ്റും ആഴവും പോലെ ഞങ്ങളും മായയും നിൻ മഹിമയും നീയുമെന്നുള്ളിലാകണം നീയല്ലോ സൃഷ്ടിയും സൃഷ്ടാവായതും സൃഷ്ടിജാലവും നീയല്ലോ ദൈവമേ സൃഷ്ടിക്കുള്ള സാമഗ്രിയായതും നീയല്ലോ മായയും മായാവിയും മായാവിനോദനും നീയല്ലോ മായയെ എനിക്ക് സായുജ്യം നൽകുമാര്യനും നീ സത്യം ജ്ഞാനമാനന്ദം നീ തന്നെ വർത്തമാനവും ഭൂതവും ഭാവിയും വേറല്ലോതുമൊഴിയുമോക്കിലും അകവും പുറവും തിങ്ങും മഹിമാവർണ്ണ നിൻ പദം പുകഴ്ത്തുന്നു ഞങ്ങളങ്ങ് ഭഗവാനെ ജയിക്കുക ജയിക്കുക മഹാദേവ ദീന അവന പരായണ ജയിക്കുക ചിദാനന്ദ ദയാ സിന്ധു ജയിക്കുക ആഴമേറും നിൻ മഹസ്സാമാഴിയിൽ ഞങ്ങളാകവേ ആരണം വരണം നിത്യം വാഴണം വരണം സുഖം.
So nice.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Advaita. So lovely that the young children are singing so beautifully. Vishai sang so melodiously. We all enjoyed it very much, despite not knowing the language so well. Thank you for taking the trouble. Advaita, though in Karnataka, you've learned the prayer in Malayalam and rendered it beautifully. So thank you to both of you, Vishna
Thank
and
you,
Advaita.
ma'am.
Now we go on to our much awaited program. Today, I have the great pleasure to welcome once again our dear Dr. Sabu. Dr. Sabu is a well-known scholar of Sri Narayana Guru. For those who are new, I would like to introduce him to you again. Dr. P.K. Sabu is a renowned erudite scholar and author on Sri Narayana Guru's philosophy and teachings. Originally from Kottayam, now settled in Kollam, Dr. Sabu was a geologist, teacher, and writer who retired from Trivandrum Engineering College in his earlier avatar. Blessed by Nataraja Guru as a child, Dr. Sabu is happy pursuing his passion to write, speak, and spread the philosophy of Sri Narayana Gurudevan far and wide. He started his career as a geologist in the groundwater department, Government of Kerala, and later changed career as a lecturer. His doctorate is on an environmental issue of Kuttanad region of Kerala and has also authored a popular science book, Nanotechnology, in Malayalam. Seeds of Narayana Guru were planted in his subconscious mind by his parents, sprouted after 4 decades through the reading of the autobiography of Nataraja Guru, whose blessings, as mentioned, he had received as a child. Dr. Sabu authored a Malayalam book as an outline of applied aspects of Guru philosophy, Viplavatinte Kirakke Nada, the Eastern Gateway of Revolution. He published articles on Guru in wide-ranging publications like Gurukulam, Gurudevan, Guru Vikshanam, Guru Ratna, Kala Kaumudi, and Oneness magazines. Numerous articles in English are published in the Guru Narayana Lokam website as well. He's been giving talks on Guru in India and abroad and has presented many papers on Guru in seminars, including those organized by Indian Institute of Advanced Study, IIAS, in Shimla and Indian Council for Philosophical Research, ICPR, in New Delhi. Presently engaged in giving an introductory course on Guru's philosophy on the WhatsApp platform. Dr. Sabu is also a member of the study program of Narayana Gurukulam. His preoccupation currently is translating the mammoth work, The Psychology of Darshanamala, into Malayalam and being serialized in Gurukulam monthly. This book is an elaborate commentary of Narayana Guru's Sanskrit work, Darshanamala, based on a lecture series at California University by Nitya Chaitanya Yati during 1970s. Today's topic is especially significant. It's Let's Build a Model India as Guru visualized it. Ashtanga Marga. Dr. Sabu speaks based on Guru's teachings. We're blessed, Dr. Sabu, to listen to you today. Over to you now.
Namaste to all. So, on Ashtanga Marga to build a model India, this is not at all related to any devotional or philosophical aspects of Narayana Guru. It's purely something related to the application of Guru's philosophy or its potential to solve mainly social issues. And this methodology can be applied to solve personal issues also. So usually, the only application of Guru's philosophy noted widely is the annihilation of caste in Kerala society during the end of 19th century and the beginning of 20th century. But if we consider that annihilation of caste alone is the application of Guru's philosophy, it is something like considering that the only application of electricity is to light bulbs. During the initial stages of discovering electricity, the main application was to light bulbs. Similarly, when Guru was alive for a particular period, Guru's main concentration was on this particular issue. But that does not mean that that is the only application of Guru's philosophy. Just like electricity, Guru's philosophical electricity also has a wide range of applications to solve many issues of human life, individual as well as collective life. And if we see the modus operandi of Guru, we can see that a drastic change can be seen in 1916. Up to 1916, we can see that Guru was mainly concentrating on the local issues. Even though philosophically he was universal, the main problem with him though his philosophy. Hello?
We can hear you, Dr. Sabu, but we can't
hear
see
me?
you anymore.
Please continue. We can hear you well.
Okay. Yes, but after 1916, we can see that the prior. Hello?
We can hear you, Dr. Sabu.
Okay. Something happened. I cannot see you.
Yes, for some reason, I think it's gone away. So if you can go back to the Zoom window on your phone, then you can see us again.
Okay. Let me see whether. Okay. I will go back to this. I will go back to the Zoom and come back. Anyway, I'll talk. You can hear me, isn't it?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly, Dr. Sabu.
Okay. So after 1916, we can see that the priorities drastically changed. Guru was giving more. Okay. So he gave priority to the religious issues. Hello? So he was concentrating on religious issues. He organized an all-religion conference. He spoke about environmental issues, ethical issues. Also, hello?
Hello, Dr. Sabu. Can you hear us? Yeah, there you are. Yes, we can see you also.
Okay. Now it is okay.
Now it's okay.
Yes. So 1916, we can see that there is a change in 1916. And before 1916, Guru was mainly concentrating on the local issues, even though philosophically he was universal. But after 1916, we can see that the priorities were changed. Guru was giving more emphasis on religious issues, environmental issues, ethical issues like that. And another thing that we can notice is that right from 1905, where Guru appeared in public life, up to 1928, he was repeatedly emphasizing on the need of a holistic perspective of life. To use a modern terminology, he was emphasizing on a holistic way of developmental methodology, considering the material as well as the non-material aspects of life, a balanced life. But that these aspects were not so known or not so noticed. And even we can see that Guru himself went to Ceylon. He sent one of his disciples, Swami Satyavratan, to Ceylon. He started night schools for the plantation workers of Ceylon. Libraries were installed. Another disciple, Swami Govindananda, he went up to Singapore and then to Japan. Nadaraja Guru was sent to France. Even the birthday of Guru in 1928 was celebrated in Switzerland, where members of League of Nations participated. So after 1916, Guru's priorities of the field to where we had to solve the problems that changed, and also just like his philosophical universality, he was more concentrating on the global issues after 1916 onwards that we can see. But mostly when we speak about the applications of Guru's philosophy, somehow still most of Guru devotees are concentrating on the caste issue alone. It is not like that. We have a lot of other areas where Guru's philosophy can be applied and it can be solved. So Guru is universal in nature. So though we are speaking about a model India, considering the universality of Guru, I'm entering through the other side of the globe by quoting a reference published in an American journal in 1995, authored by Bill McKibben. The title of the paper is The Enigma of Green Kerala. It was not just a review paper. He came to Kerala, he studied the socio-economic and cultural aspects of Kerala and wrote the article. So the enigma he has described with the help of one or two metaphors. One metaphor is that it is something like someone proving in the laboratory that a flame can be burnt without oxygen. So a flame without oxygen, something like a flame without oxygen, and also someone proving in the laboratory that water can be converted into ice at 60 degrees centigrade. So that type of enigma was found in Kerala. That enigma was contrary to the belief of the developmental experts, connecting the quality of life and income. The common belief of developmental experts was that only rich people can get good education, only rich people will live for long time, infant mortality rate will be low among rich people. But all these notions were violated in Kerala, and you could find that with a very low income, about 1/78th of America, Kerala has achieved the same social quality of US. So what he said is that if Kerala can achieve the same quality of life of America with 1/70th of income, Kerala is a vastly more successful society. So that was the enigma. And he further went into the reasons why how this enigma was created. His finding is that just like Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King, the social reformers of United States, Kerala too had her own Abraham Lincolns and Martin Luther Kings. He referred just one name, that of Narayana Guru, probably the Chief Martin Luther King or Chief Abraham Lincoln of Kerala. He also has a narration about the adulation at Aruvipuram. He even says that the rallying cry of Narayana Guru was one caste, one religion, and one God for humans. All these are quoted. That is an enigma. That is a 1995 paper. And I found another reference of Kerala by Amartya Sen in his book published in 2000. What he says is that Kerala's achievement is worth celebrating and worth learning from. And he is comparing Kerala with USA or Japan in terms of the social indices of development. And there he is using a term Kerala model and Kerala experience. So for a section of developmental experts, it is an enigma, it is a model, or at least it is an experience. And last week, our Sudansa from Calcutta, he recalled an article of Dr. K.N. Raj. K.N. Raj was a friend of Amartya Sen. He too was a product of London School of Economics. And K.N. Raj was the Vice Chancellor of Delhi University. And he was the economic advisor of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru when he was Prime Minister. And also one of the masterminds behind the 5-year plans of India. So he narrated an experience with Amartya Sen at the time when Amartya Sen was awarded with Nobel Prize in 1998. So what Dr. K.N. Raj recalled is that Amartya Sen asked him why there is a Kerala model and why that model is not extended to the whole India. Why there is no India model or model India. The answer of K.N. Raj was that we had a Narayana Guru and there was no such Guru for the whole India. That's why Kerala moved along an entirely different trajectory when compared with the other states of India and the whole nation, the nation as a whole. So that is the observation of Amartya Sen. And a question is always put by these experts. Is it possible to replicate the Kerala model elsewhere in any other part of the world? So all of them agree that this pudding of Kerala model is unique in the world. It is very tasty. But also they all agree. Also there is a consensus among all the experts that the master chef behind this particular model was Narayana Guru. They all agree. But is it possible to replicate that model in any other part of the world? That is the question. So the main discussion was about the taste of this Kerala model pudding. They have not seen much efforts to find out the recipe behind that, at least the ingredients behind that. What ingredients constituted the Kerala model and what recipe was behind that. So unless we know the ingredients and unless we know the recipe, it is not possible to replicate the model elsewhere. So here I am referring only the general outline of this recipe and ingredient, not all, some of the ingredients which I could get from the Kerala model by studying Narayana Guru for 1 or 2 decades. And the immediate reason for selecting this topic was the quoting of Narayana Guru's words by the Honorable President of India on 2019 June 20, while addressing the joint parliament session of the present NDA government. The President quoted the well-known words of Narayana Guru inscribed on the walls of Arivipuram temple, Jadi Bedam, Madadesham, Edumillada Sarvarum, Sodaratena Vazhanna Madriga Sthanamadidu. He quoted these words in Malayalam itself. Its English translation, as given by Nadaraj Guru, is like this: devoid of dividing walls of caste and race, or hatred of rival faiths, we all live here in brotherhood. Such now this place to be this model foundation. So this is a model foundation. So how this model foundation of Kerala can be extrapolated to the whole India? Is it possible? If it is to be materialized, what steps are to be taken by Government of India? Based on these points, I wrote an article and published in Oneness of SNGCC Shillong. Later, it was published in gurunarayanalogam.com. Somehow the points came as 8 in number, so I named it as Ashtanga Marga. Moreover, Ashtanga Marga is well known, related to Buddha. And G. Shankarakurup, one of the well-known poets of Kerala, he once referred Narayana Guru as second Buddha, Randam Sugadan. So in that way also we can relate this title Ashtanga Marga to the present context. So there I listed 8 topics or 8 ingredients which can be cooked and through which the Kerala model can be replicated if earnestly tried. And these points are: number 1. So I'll read one sentence of Dr. Radhakrishnan, which he wrote about 100 years ago in 1922 in his book on Indian philosophy. So about Indian philosophy, he says that the most ancient fancies sometimes startle us by their strikingly modern character. The most ancient fancies sometimes startle us by their strikingly modern character. We can see that this is what exactly happened in Kerala. The most ancient wisdom of India that attained a strikingly modern character when it passed through the wisdom of Narayana Guru. And one modern trend was that he applied it. And that makes the main difference between the same Advaita or same Vedanta, which have been practiced in India for many centuries, and how it changed when it came through Narayana Guru. So in terms of one of the disciples of Nadaraj Guru, Mangalananda Swami, he says that the whole Advaita was frozen in ice form in Himalayas. Nadaraj Guru melted it. He brought it downwards to the low-lying areas, made the barren lands fertile. So that was the application of the ancient wisdom. So it attained a modern character. So actually, what these experts are explaining are, in terms of a civil engineering metaphor, only the superstructure, the political enterprise of life, the economic enterprise, the scientific enterprise, the technological enterprise. So all these can be seen as the superstructure of human life. There is an underlying foundation, a philosophical foundation, or there is a value system. To learn about Kerala model, unless we look into the foundational aspects, it is absolutely impossible to replicate it any other place, because it is a very peculiar foundation. It is on that foundation the whole edifice was built. And that foundation is the revalued or revised wisdom of India, which Nadaraja Guru called as unity understanding or unity philosophy. So if you want to make India a model along the lines of Kerala model, the first thing to accept is that India has its own wisdom, its own foundational wisdom on which we make all other superstructures. So there comes the importance of what we call as independence. We attained political independence way back in 1947. So does it mean that we are independent? So the word independence can be taken in two ways. It is independence in the ordinary sense, and also it is independent. Are we independent, or are we still depending the imperialists for ideological foundation or not? So to make India a model foundation along the lines of Kerala model, the first point, number one, is we should have our own indigenous wisdom as our background. Only on that particular background, we can make the superstructure. This is what Narayana Guru did. That foundation was invisible, but on that invisible foundation, he made the superstructure, which the developmental experts measure in terms of whether it is infant mortality or life expectancy, religious harmony. So one point which was highlighted by Bill McKibben in his article on the enigma of green Kerala is the peculiar religious harmony with such a density of population with a mixture of different communities. It's almost impossible in any other part of the world. So how that religious harmony was attained? There is a strong philosophical foundation, and that philosophical foundation is basically the Advaita philosophy revalued by Narayana Guru in 20th century. It is neither, we cannot fix it in terms of the duality of tradition or modernity. We can say that it is a kind of revalued wisdom of ancient India. So the first thing to make a model India, as declared by the President of India. So after quoting the words of Narayana Guru, the President declared that the motto of my government is to make a model India along the lines of these words of Narayana Guru. So to make India a model, this should be attained. This is the very basic foundation, the value system. So on that value system, all other points can be made. This is number one. And number two, India is well known for Dharma Shastras, Smridis. And a well-known Smriti is Manusmriti. Lot of debate is going on even now regarding the acceptability or suitability of Manusmriti in modern time. The argument against it is the section dealing with Varna or caste system. So if you observe Narayana Guru, how dealt with this ancient scripture, we can see a middle path. He never accepted those parts of Manusmriti which are not in accordance with the dignity of modern life, the Varna system or the caste system. But he never uttered a word. We cannot find even a single word uttered by Narayana Guru against Manusmriti. Instead of that, he composed certain works, Jati Nirnayam, critique of caste, Jati defined, Jati Lashanam, like that. These are very sharp replies to the caste related or Varna related comments given in Manusmriti. That is one side. At the same time, Guru translated a few verses of Manusmriti into Malayalam, that part known as Ahimsa. So Guru's position was a middle path. Whatever is acceptable to the modern age, which suits the dignity of human life, he accepted it. Those parts which are not acceptable to the modern life, the dignity of modern life, he never ridiculed it, he never asked people to burn it, but he rewritten those parts in his own words. And all these are combined in what is known as Narayana Smriti. So probably this is the only modern Smriti which has its roots in the ancient Indian wisdom. It is rooted in the Indian wisdom. At the same time, it suits the life and dignity of modern world. So we have Narayana Smriti. I have that text with me. This is Narayana Smriti. So number two, step number two, to build a model India based on Narayana Guru's wisdom or Kerala model is accept Narayana Smriti as the official code of conduct of India, which is rooted in India's own wisdom. So there Guru is dealing with oneness of caste, oneness of religion, and also a modern life is presented. The whole basic aspect of Narayana Guru's philosophy, when applied in social aspects, is a total change in the perspective of life. For the individual level, we will be doing what we were doing before acquiring this knowledge, but internally we will be totally drastically changing. That's a change in perspective, whether it is in individual life or in collective life. A change in internal perspective is a radical thing to adopt Guru's philosophy, to apply Guru's philosophy. So this is Narayana Smriti that gives a very good model of life, which suits modern life. At the same time, it is rooted in the ancient Indian wisdom. We can see life as 5 components of sacrifices. Yajna, seeing life as a yajna. He gave the names Brahma Yajna, then Pidru Yajna, Daiva Yajna, Bhuta Yajna, and Manushya Yajna. Do the part that is given to the Brahman. Go on studying, learning and teaching should be part of the whole life till end. That is Brahma Yajna. Do whatever is required for ancestors, Pitru Puja. They are for household aids, not for sannyasis, household aids. That is Pitru Yajna. Do yajnas in the usual fire sacrifices to please gods for ordinary human beings. That is Deva Yajna. Give food to animals. Take care of animals. That is Bhuta Yajna. Take care of servants. Take care of brahmacharis. Take care of sannyasis. These are all coming under Manushya Yajna. So through these 5 yajnas, 5 sacrifices, Guru is giving a particular perspective of life, which we can adopt in modern life, and at the same time it is rooted in Indian wisdom. Similarly, 5 types of dharmas: ahimsa, satyam, asteyam, abhyabhicharam, madhyasya varjanam. 5 dharmas, 5 shuddhis, 5 types of cleanliness. So all these are given in Narayana Smriti, a text which is very competent for modern India. So to adopt Kerala model to India, that should be accepted as an officially accepted Smriti of modern India, in spite of the ancient controversial text like Manusmriti, because this text accepts all best qualities of Manusmriti. At the same time, it is not incorporating those aspects of Manusmriti which are not in tune with the dignity of modern man. That is number 2. Number 3 is the oneness of caste. It's well known that Guru stood for oneness of caste. That can be, that should be extrapolated to the whole world. So when we compare the change or progress in caste-related issues in India, we can see that lot of progress have already taken place, but we have to go, miles to go before the whole issues are solved. So how that can be achieved? One way is teach children about oneness of caste by prescribing Guru's works in the syllabus of school children. Jadi Lashanam, Jadi Dannayam are also those parts of Narayana Smriti. So unless that oneness of caste is implemented in India, we cannot say that India is progressing along the lines of Kerala, because it is well known that when compared with many other states of India, the caste related issues are comparatively minimum in Kerala, and the credit is universally given to Narayana Guru. So that is rooted in his philosophy. That is number 3, oneness of caste. Number 4 is oneness of religion. Again, the two issues noted by Guru right at the time of the installation of Arivipuram temple specifically was Jati Bhedam Madadvesham. The disputes based on the caste related issues and religion related issues. Even in an interview with C.V. Gunjaraman, Guru said that today's main problems of India are those related with caste and religion. That was in pre-independent India. Now the issues are changed. So there, number 4, we have to deal with the oneness of religion. Again, the philosophical aspects of the oneness of religion are given in verses 43 to 49 of Atmopadesha Sadakam, the oneness of religion. A very philosophical definition of religion also is given in that text. Every individual at every time is seeking for self-happiness. That's the type of philosophical religion. And in the ordinary sense, the essential teachings of all religions are same. But people approach the religions like blind men approaching the elephant. And that creates a lot of problems. So to solve these religion-based issues, again, the only remedial measure is teach children about the oneness of religion as prescribed in Narayana Guru's text. The oneness of religion given in Atmopadesha Sadakam and also in Narayana Smriti. In verse 50 of Narayana Smriti, Guru says that Muslims, Christians, Jains, Buddhists, and all other religions, they're all seeking for the oneness of religion. They're all seeking for oneness through their different paths. So the paths are different, but the ultimate aim is same. That is oneness. That is number 4, the oneness of religion. That has to be incorporated in the official program of Government of India to adopt the Kerala model to the whole India. Number 5. We are still following the index of development as GDP. GDP is taken as the main index of development. So, as I pointed out in the point number 1, we got independence from the imperialists, but does it mean that we have an independent index of development? Developmental indices are very important. The very contradictory aspect is that the imperialists enslaved India on the basis of economic principles. They had principles, but those principles are imperialist principles. So on the basis of imperialistic principles, even looting can be justified because that's a principle-based operation. And they made the colonization and imperialization based on the principle of economic growth. And we were the victims. And we victims are also adopting the same norm as our index of development. There is a contradiction. If you say that India has own wisdom, why don't we develop an index of development based on our own wisdom? And that index will not be GDP, as Subhash explains very nicely based on his research work. It should be something like GDP plus. GDP should be, or GDP is not out. It's a part of progress. Without economic progress, we cannot have development in life. That's a part of it. But whether we are seeing economic growth as the ultimate aim, or whether we are seeing economic growth as a means of attaining human happiness. So when we see economic growth as a means for attaining human happiness, the aim is not economic growth, it is only the self-happiness. Based on that, whether we are living for earning money or whether money is earned for having a good livelihood, that's the basic difference. When we say that GDP is the main index of development, we are accepting that our aim is to earn money in life. That is contradictory to the basic philosophy of Narayana Guru And here we have an index of United Nations, the Human Development Index. So you will be surprised to see that the Human Development Index was developed by UN based on a study of Kerala in 1970s. During 1970s, a detailed study of the social conditions of Kerala was conducted with the cooperation of UN, mainly with the initiative of Dr. K.N. Raj. They found this surprising what is known as enigma of Kerala or Kerala model of Kerala experience, like the fire burning without oxygen. That is unique in the whole world. So that was the inspiration for the United Nations to make a developmental index, which is alternate to the GDP index of IMF or World Bank. So there they proposed HDI, Human Development Index. It's very interesting to see the disparity between these two indices. We take the case of India. India is above 10 in the index of GDP, whereas below 100 in the index of Human Development Index. Norway is number 1 in Human Development Index, not the recent 2020, it was in 2018. But in GDP, Norway's position is 20. There is a disparity. So which index India is choosing? To say that we are totally independent, and we have our own wisdom, and we are moving along the path of Narayana Guru, we cannot claim that by accepting GDP as our main index of development. We have to look for a different index of development. Already Bhutan has their own index, gross national happiness. Australia has their own national index of development, ANDI, Australian National Development Index. Canada is also in the making process. So that is number 5. To claim that India is going to make a model India based on Kerala model, a very important point is that India should have an index of development based on indigenous wisdom. This is not only applicable for countries, it is applicable for individual humans also, individual families also. What should be our norm of progress and what should be our norm of development? Whether we concentrate on the happiness of the family or whether we are concentrating on earning money at the expense of many fine moments of life. It's applicable, equally applicable in individual life, family life, as well as in the case of national progress. That is number 5. Number 6 is an educational policy in accordance with the India's wisdom, which was stated as the unity philosophy as point number 1. Again, we have the model of Narayana Guru. He started 2 official institutions, educational institutions. One, a Sanskrit school at Aluva, the other one, an English school at Orkala. These are not just 2 languages, these are symbols of 2 aspects of life. Sanskrit represents the ancient wisdom, the spiritual aspects of life, and English that stands for the modern life. So Guru had in mind a very balanced approach between the material aspects of life, the modern progress of life, as well as the traditional aspects of life, the spiritual foundation. It was a balanced approach, something like a ship moving through a very disturbed sea. We need the power to cut across the waves and progress. We need modern education. English education is a must. But during times of troubles, to anchor the ship, we need the wisdom. When we compare the individual life with such a ship, to anchor the life during the times of trouble, we need wisdom. Now we can see in the young generation, this wisdom is lacking, and we can see the number of suicidal cases increasing. They are very smart in achieving progress in material side of life, but lagging behind in the other side. So what Guru had in mind was a balanced approach of education. Again, it is in tune with what was given by Dr. Radhakrishnan in the first University Education Commission after India became independent. That he also mentioned the same thing. Also, there is one aspect which is not so known, is that probably the first technical training educational institution was started by Narayana Guru in Shivagiri Madam during 1920s. Usually in India, what is known is that Vardha project of Mahatma Gandhi is the first skill-based educational institution. what I read in one of the biographies of Narayana Guru, Purnayendu Pranava Saruban by one Ubendran, what he says is that when Mahatma Gandhi visited Narayana Guru at Sivagiri in 1925, this institution was there, and technological institution attached to a madam, an ashramam. This is the balance between the technological side of the material side of life as well as the spiritual side of life. Probably Gandhiji might have seen that. What he says is that Gandhiji inquired about the functioning of that institution. That was managed by P. Nadarajan, who later became Nadaraj Guru, at Ernest Kark. Ernest Kark and Nadaraj Guru were in charge of that institution, where spiritual and material aspects were combined. And we can see that approach even in the subjects given by Narayana Guru for discussing in Sivagiri pilgrimage, the 8 topics. The 4 topics are related to economic growth. The 4 other topics are related to the non-material aspects. We can say that the economic capital as well as the non-economic capital. So what was in Guru's mind was a balanced approach. He was not rejecting the material side of life. Right from 1905 onwards, in all advices given to SNDP Yogam or even Pulaya Samajam in one of the meetings, also the message given at the time of starting of Sivagiri Madam, everywhere Guru was giving this balanced approach between material and non-material aspects of life. So to follow that path and to make a model India, Indian education system should be revamped according to the balanced approach. It should be founded on India's wisdom. At the same time, it should incorporate all the modern technological and Western education. That's another aspect. The education side. I think in the new education policy of government, some changes are made accordingly. I've not seen it in detail, but I think some changes are made in tune with the traditional Indian wisdom. So that is point number 6. And we have this book, Towards the One World Economics. This is the book which gives the guideline to develop an index based on Narayana Guru's teaching towards the One World Economics. Basically, that is the application of the philosophy of Atmopadesha Sadakam in economics. That is there. And number 7, environmental aspects. So I will read out a sentence from the Human Development Report of this year, 2020. Every year, UN is publishing a Human Development Report starting from 1919. And as I referred earlier, the inspiration for UN to start such a report was Kerala. And all the experts agree that Narayana Guru was behind that particular model. So indirectly, the UN has already accepted that Narayana Guru gave them a model for an index. But it is indirectly. I don't know whether UN has referred Narayana Guru's name anywhere, that I don't know. But indirectly, even Amartya Sen knows that Narayana Guru was behind that. It goes like that. Already Guru has influence on an international platform. And the need of studying or need of comparing the UN programs with the Guru's philosophy, that again I got that idea from Nadaraj Guru. Nadaraj Guru says that Guru's philosophy has to be studied against the policies of UN, because at least in principle, a global organization which has some control over the entire globe is UN, and Guru's philosophy is again universal. So there is a universal philosophy and there is a universal organization. Naturally, the programs of the universal organization has to be studied against the philosophy of the universal philosophy of Narayana Guru, and Narayana Guru's philosophy has to be tested against the programs of the United Nations. So in 2020 report, I'll read out one sentence. The report is not yet ready. An interim draft report was published. So the Director of Human Development Report of UNDP, he says that it makes no sense to think of people and development are somehow separate from the planet. We are embedded in nature. Neglecting this not only threatens future generations with catastrophic risk, but is already blighting the lives of many today. So we are embedded in nature. That is what the coming UN report is going to stress. Every year they take a focal theme and they make the report accordingly. This year, because of the coronavirus infection, they have concentrated on the environmental issues. And with this sentence of the director of UNDP, I will read out what Guru said 100 years ago in a meeting organized by Sahodar Ayyappan. Guru asked Sahodar Ayyappan to read out these parts. What Guru says is that man trots about the earth as a veritable demon of destruction. As he marches, he leaves behind him a trail of devastation. He cuts down the trees and blasts and bleeds into paleness the green beauty of nature for the sake of the plantations and smoky towns and factories, which his unbridled desires necessitates. He cuts down the trees and blasts and bleeds into paleness the green beauty of nature for the sake of the plantations and smoky towns and factories, which his unbridled desires necessitates. So what is seen in today's UNDP report is, and it resonates what Narayana Guru said 100 years ago. That is the environmental concern of Narayana Guru. He asked his disciples to teach these topics to the people. While Sahodar Ayyappan arranged the Sahodara Sammelanam, Guru dictated these words and asked him to tell people about the greed of the people. And then he never used the term environment there, but only after 1960s only, the environmental movement started in the Western countries after the publication of the well-known book, The Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. So about 50 years ago, Guru warned about the same consequences. So if India want to adopt the Kerala model, India has to follow this type of environmental policy. And finally, number 8, we need a one world manifesto. One world manifesto. And here we have a draft paper, Memorandum on World Government. And this draft paper is actually the application of Narayana Guru's philosophy in politics. This is not party politics or sectarian politics, seeing politics from an entirely different perspective. And for this purpose, rooted in the philosophy of Narayana Guru, Nadaraj Guru developed a particular branch of science known as geodialectics. So based on geodialectics, we can develop a particular type of politics which is applicable to the entire nation. So without such a geodialectical perspective, the UN cannot function properly. This is a global perspective of politics. As I said earlier, the programs of UN should be supported by a universal philosophy. Unless the programs are supported by the universal philosophy, it will not be that much of effective, not founded in a proper philosophy. So here is the philosophy for the UN, Memorandum on World Government. India has already was capable of accepting yoga at the UN platform. It's already a UN International Yoga Day is already there. The basis for accepting yoga is that though it is of Indian origin, its applicability is universal. Similarly, this Indian wisdom, though it originated in the geographical territory of India, its application is universal. So it's only India can bring this point to the international platform. It is related to Narayana Guru. See, even if we are not mentioning the name of Narayana Guru, we can present the ideas. So it is the task of India to present this type of ideas in UN platforms and create an ambience for discussing about this type of world politics. That is number 8. So unless we follow this Ashtanga Marga, these are 8 methods. As I said earlier, this is not a recipe to make a model India, but some of the ingredients. Based on these ingredients, we can work out the actual recipes, how it can be made. But if we see the Kerala model pudding, we can see that these are the inevitable ingredients based on which Guru made that particular model. This is what I meant by the Ashtanga Marga to develop a model India. And I shall conclude by answering a question. The question may be hypothetical, or it may be lurking in the minds of some of the participants. Is it possible to make a model India by making a presentation in a WhatsApp group like this, or writing an article? To give the answer, I have to go back a series of conferences organized by Nadaraj Guru in 1971, 72, 73, that period. Nadaraj Guru organized a series of conferences, World Peace Through Unity Understanding. World Peace Through Unity Understanding. What he meant was attaining world peace based on the philosophy of Narayana Guru. By unity understanding, there is a modern terminology for Vedanta or Advaita, as revalued by Narayana Guru. It was all organized in Ezhimala. Later, the land was acquired by Government of India for the Naval Academy. It was world peace through unity understanding. Later, that venue was changed into world peace through naval expedition. That it was the venue. Then someone asked Nadaraj Guru, is it possible to bring world peace by organizing conferences in a remote village like this? Guru's answer was that I have the right to dream, and I am dreaming. And if you ask somebody whether we can make a model India by presenting this type of presentations in conferences, my answer is also the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. What a fantastic note to end on.